Hello everyone, welcome back to my table, and today is the second episodes of Essence&Encounters. I misspoke the first time. Roll the intro. Yes, I know that was based off a Pointy Hat video. Don't judge me, I loved how that looked. This is where we look through the new 2024 Monster Manual and talk about the creatures inside, their history, and how to run them. Today we are talking about the Oozy Sea Mother, the Infectious Curse Giver, the Tentacled Ne'er-do-well, the Aboleth. The Aboleth is a cruel, hyper-intelligent, and immortal creature. These creatures are schemers, being full of contingencies and backup plans. They are dangerous predators in the water, hiding deep in deep caves and hidden within deep lakes in the mountains. They spend their time gathering thralls and most likely watching anime to pass the time. The Aboleth originally came from 1st edition in the dungeon module from the 1980s Origins Game Fair, named Dwellers of the Forgotten City. This, however, was far from their first encounter, with the Aboleth being available in all editions of D&D with art for each version, with the 2nd edition even looked like a screwed up koi fish. But they're also pretty notable characters, not just enemies, with many Aboleths being named in part of D&D lore, such as Yulugabub, Yulugkalabub. I'm just gonna call him the Devourer because that's his nickname. Please forgive me, I can't speak this word. He comes from the Elemental Evil Crisis, or Elune, who was in the dungeons of the Mad Mage Adventure in 5e, living under the mountain taking Kuo-toa as their thralls. These creatures are much more complex and interesting than a simple paragraph from the Monster Manual can give them. That's why they have 2 whole pages for it. Aboleths are eels with minds of a lich who decide to be part of the sea life under the sea. Not literally, they do not come from liches, it's just a comparison because they're known for their hyper-intelligence. They're so smart they have developed psionics, being able to read people's minds and tempt them with their greatest desires. And they aren't all bad either, because they will use their psionics to give people the illusion of having their greatest desires. Aboleths have a strong hatred for gods, since they're the ones who put them in the place to begin with because they came before the gods, being smited down by them. They have a good relationship with their thralls, at least most of the time, because their rage isn't at the mortals who took their place on the material plane, but the gods who put them there. Some people may be confused. If they live in deep, deep waters, how can a normal person reach them to get their desires? That's where the goo comes in. The Aboleths give off a goo, similar to Nickelodeon slime, that helps them breathe. However, it does much more than that. If someone sucks up the goo like a piece of gross jello, or in other words, accidentally breathes it in, the person becomes cursed. When the person becomes cursed, their skin becomes slimy. They can breathe both air and water. So it makes it so that the thralls breathe in jello, or feeds it to them, then teases them with their greatest desire to serve the Aboleth. Not only that, they have 2 special abilities that are not mentioned on the stat block, and we're going to cover those first. Those being Foul Water and Psionic Projection. Foul Water makes it so that any water within a whole mile of the Aboleth becomes soiled, causing people to drink it to become poisoned if they fail a Constitution saving throw. Their existence is so vile that they dirty any water in the nearby area. A bath cannot even save them. They shit in the tub! Psionic Projections is next, and it allows the Aboleth to cast Project Image. This spell normally creates an illusionary copy of themselves in space within 500 miles. However, an Aboleth can only cast it within 1 mile of its lair, and can speak through it telepathic. Now, I normally homebrew this a little bit, but we'll get to that later. Now we'll talk about the stat block in the 2024 Monster Manual, which is on page 12. This is our very first large stat block, so we're going to have to take our time with it. The Aboleth is a large aberration, making something very abnormal, and they are lawful evil. Now, from my last video, you might see how I feel about alignment from my short response to it, even though I'm not a fan of alignment, because I believe that people and monsters are much more complicated than that. But I believe alignments can also give you an idea how to run a character if you're just pulling them out of the ether. And Aboleth, for example, is lawful because they are plotting, scheming creatures who have plans on plans, not acting on instinct. There are reasons behind their madness and the rules they follow. Now, enough about the alignment rant. They have an AC of 17, 150 HP, a 10-foot walking speed, and a 40-foot swimming speed. I honestly thought they might be faster. And a +7 to initiative. Now, its stats are a little bit all over the place, with strength being a 21, a dexterity of a 9, even though it somehow has a +7 to initiative, a 15 in Constitution, and 18 in Intelligence, which I thought would be higher, and a 15 in Wisdom, and an 18 in Charisma. They have a plus 12 to History, which makes sense if you know their lore, and a plus 10 to their Perception, giving them a 20 passive Perception. Have fun sneaking through that. It also has Dark Vision out to 120 feet. It only speaks Deep Speech for some reason, which is strange because it consumes the minds of mortals, and it doesn't learn the language that the mind it consumed. But either way, it has Telepathy out to 120 feet, and it's a whopping CR10, making them a good enemy for people to work up to, or something for a mid-level party to handle, or even could be the final boss of a low-level campaign. Now we move on to traits, the things that make an Aboleth. They are amphibious, which means they'll be able to breathe both air and water. They have legendary resistances, which basically they have 3 times a day where they fail a saving throw, they can just say, no, I'm touching the safe space, and they're not going to fail the save. They pass the save, basically. Those are the basic traits, but then we have the more complicated ones, starting with Eldritch Restoration. Eldritch Restoration makes it so when Aboleth goes down and dies, they can pull a Lich and restore their body after 5d10 days with all of their hit points in the far realm or location the DM says, most likely their lair, or their favorite coffee shop with the very cute barista. Next we have the Mucus Clouds, which causes people to fail a Constitution saving throw to be cursed, like we mentioned before, with slimy skin and being able to breathe air and water. Lastly, we have Probing Telepathy, which allows them to communicate with the creature telepathically, and anyone they speak with telepathically, the Aboleth will learn the creature's greatest desire. Now we move on to their actions, starting with multi-attack. The Aboleth can make 2 tentacle attacks. They can use either Consume Memories or Dominate Mind on their turn if possible. First we have the tentacle attack, and hey, no, none of that, stop! Which has a plus 9 to hit and a reach of 15 feet and deals 2d6 plus 5 bludgeoning damage. If the attack is a larger or smaller creature and the attack lands, the creature is grappled. It has an escape DC of 14, which isn't too terrible. Then there are Consume Memories, which makes the creature grappled or charmed by the Aboleth to make a DC 16 Intelligence saving throw. On a fail, they take 3d6 psychic damage. On a pass, they take half damage. However, on a pass or fail, if the attack reduces the creature to 0 hit points, it will consume the creature's memories. Like, imagine that your fighter is fighting this thing before losing all their memories, basically wiping their mind, making a fresh character almost. There's gotta be a way for you to get your memories back. Then we have Dominate Mind, which can be used twice a day. This targets a creature within 30 feet of the Aboleth, making the creature make a DC 16 Wisdom saving throw. On a failed, the creature is charmed by the Aboleth until the Aboleth dies, or until it's a different plane of existence. While charmed, the Aboleth can control the creature if it's within 60 feet of it. As long as the creature is charmed, it can telepathically communicate with the Aboleth over any distance. There is a way out though, being able to remake the save in 2 ways. You can remake the save whenever you take damage, or once every 24 hours you are away from the Aboleth by about 1 mile. Lastly, we have Legendary Actions. Legendary Actions. Now, this is the first time a monster I'm covering has Legendary Actions, so I should explain what they are. Legendary Actions are actions a monster can take right after a creature's turn when it's not even their turn. If your Cleric is next in turn order and is about to make their turn, the Aboleth can use its Legendary Action before the Cleric's turn starts. The thing about these actions is that they recharge on the start of the Aboleth's turn, so Aboleth has 3 legendary actions, 4 in its lair. For one of its legendary actions, it can do either a Lash or a Psychic Drain. A Lash attack is just a tentacle attack, while a Psychic Drain allows it to use Consume Memory as an action if a creature is grappled or charmed. When they do this, they regain 1d10 hit points. Now that we've gotten over the stat block, we can now work on a new encounter for your party. This encounter will be for a group of 5 level 8 adventurers. Your party just took a long rest going through the damp and dirty dungeon full of damp and soiled water leaking in from all crevices. They have come here to deal with something called a leeching memory, where people have entered but have left without memories or with strange slimy skin, dying from a strange acidic plague. As they have gone through the dungeon, an illusionary form of an elf with seafoam green tentacles for hair has been goading and taunting them, talking about how their memories will be delectable. This person, who introduced himself as Harvessa, is secretly an Aboleth who has been secretly eating the memories of those who entered before sending them back out to regain new memories and to return back here. They get to a large underground lake, seeming to be the end of the dungeon. We now move to an arena, which is this lovely battle map created by the Fabula Draco on Instagram and Patreon. Now we have 5 characters, same as last time: a warlock, a cleric, a fighter, a wizard, and a monk. All at level 8. They get on the ship on the edge of the water, sailing out to look for something, whether that be for Harvessa, an exit, or treasure. They sail out before the water starts moving, and the ship suddenly is racked with tentacles. Roll initiative. To properly run this monster, I would have Harversa use his legendary actions between turns and initiative after it takes damage. Make sure to keep track of how many legendary actions are used. The Aboleth will roll low for initiative, with only the wizard rolling lower. After each turn in combat, it will make a tentacle attack against the creature that just attacked them, starting with the monk, then the cleric, then the warlock, then the fighter, using all 4 of its legendary actions before its turn ends, regaining them after its turn. The Aboleth will then use its tentacle attacks to attempt to grapple creatures, successfully grappling the fighter on the second attack. The fighter fails its save and becomes charmed by the Aboleth, now acting as an ally to the Aboleth. The fighter will take its next turn to break free of the tentacle and attack the warlock. The warlock will use an unarmed strike to make the fighter remake a save, which he passes, being no longer charmed. While this goes on, the monk, cleric, and wizard are fighting and casting spells with the Aboleth. Then the Aboleth takes its turn to swim under the boat, taking attack of opportunity from the monk, before using its tentacles to grapple the wizard and cleric, trying to charm the wizard. However, the wizard passes its save, using all of its Dominate Minds for that day. Now that it's used all of its Dominate Minds for the day, it needs to work on its own to take out the party. This is where your creativity comes in. You can have the Aboleth try to sink the boat by using its tentacles to sink it, or have the Aboleth pull creatures down into the water, and much more. Once the battle's over, they can find a chest sunken underneath the water nearby abandoned ships. Finding 300 gold pieces, gems worth found another 100, an alchemy jug, a bag of holding which holds the alchemy alchemy jub, and a bead of force. And that's it. That's how you run Aboleth in D&D 5e. Just remember that you can always scale the monster to your party, and I'd also like to thank my patrons, Zerky Tree News, Nyx Hunter, and Vixenville. Now I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, don't forget to leave a like, favorite, and or subscribe. And go support your local game shops, enjoy your adventures, and roll safely. Farewell!